just the one departure and arrival to talk about this week, and it's at Roots Hall. And this is one of those where I'm sure Southend fans will all have their own opinions. And of course, they've watched more of their side than certainly I have this season. And they know more about the ins and outs of the club. But on the outside looking in, Mike, Mark Molesley being replaced by Phil Brown just seems a touch harsh.
Yes, very much so for me, because I try not to get wound up by manager dismissals nowadays, and generally don't, because it goes with the territory. We're living a time period now where patience is thin on the ground, and everybody understands that. But just the backstory behind this season at Southend and the improvement that's been made. You've been tracking their underlying data all season, and Molesley was. It was a hospital pass, when he came in at the start of the season. It was an absolute nightmare of a job. The culture there, such a losing culture. First half of the season, you're looking at an XG ratio in the 30% mark, as bad as it gets. The bottom of League Two, worst team in League Two, but slowly but surely, he's got on top of the job. And now we're looking at a team that's borderline playoff standards in terms of the level of control and domination of games. But they've not got much quality, and they've not got much goal threat. And, but you see the progress that's been made when you look at the underlying data throughout the season. And it also helps, they've been a team, when you follow that formula, they've kind of been profitable for me. And so I've obviously taken a shine to Molesley in that sense. But I found it infuriating, because he's one of those managers that you're looking for long-term compound effects in the work that he's doing. And we're just getting to the point where you're thinking, just one win, and this could explode for Southend, and they could finish the season on a real surge and a real good run that gets them out of trouble, because everything's in place except the goals and the quality at the top end of the pitch. But, confidence could it could change and transform overnight. And you're just thinking, I still think Southend can still get out of this. And then all of a sudden you hear he's sacked, and you just think, well, that's so harsh. Because now, even if they come in and, they do get a few results, Phil Brown's going to take all the glory. And he will take all the glory too. So I just found it infuriating. And I don't really let managerial dismissals get to me. I don't let them. It doesn't wind me up anymore. You just understand that that's the way it is. But this one, I just think it's really, really harsh.
Yeah, it's hard to see what Phil Brown is going to do differently, because at the end of the day, he still has the same squad. And Mark Molesley, as you say, had them fighting defensively. They were brilliant. If you take the last 10, 15 games, they've got one of the best defensive records in the division. But as you say, the problems were up top, and Phil Brown doesn't have long to do much with, the attacking players. And a 0-0 at the weekend, of course. I don't know how much time he had to really orchestrate that, but you sense that he's going to come up against the same old problems.
Yeah, and I tend to take my reading from other managers as well. And it's not just the performance data. There's been some very respected managers that give you a good read of the overview of the division. When Michael Duff being a prime example of a manager that when he speaks up about an opposition team and gives you some insight, you think, right, ears prick up, I'm listening, because I really respect what he has to say about everyone else. So many managers have praised Southend, the way that they're set up. They're not a bottom two team. They're at least mid-table standard is the general vibe that you're getting. So all this is kind of in place. And Phil Brown's going to come in. He's going to change it all up. And Phil Brown himself has said after this first weekend, in his first interview, they're playing according to this philosophy that's kind of foreign to me. I don't get it. I remember, and he even refers back to sending a lad out to Bournemouth on loan, where Mark Molesley would have probably been behind the scenes at the time. And he came back and told me the philosophy that they were playing at Bournemouth, and I just didn't get it. And, and it's like, it feels a little bit the same now, where all these players that I've inherited are talking this language and understanding this game in a way that I don't particularly understand it. And I've got to impart my 40 years of experience on them in a week and get them to understand my old school values and what it is I want to change. And it just seems like bizarre. Now, it might get results, because it's just desperate times call for desperate measures. You roll the dice and, who knows what might happen. For me, though, I think the big issue for Southend, and what really riles me, is if they go down, they had an ideal manager that already had a year's body of work behind him to really have a good go at non-league next season. He's managed non-league with Weymouth. This is a man that's worked in development under 23 football. So in terms of recruitment, he's in tune with a modern player, but he's also managed Weymouth at the same time. So he understands non-league. He's got this year of experience now with Southend at the coalface, really understands that, at the cutting edge of the game now in the professional game. He's only going to go from strength to strength, you would imagine, from this point forward. But in order to just cheaply roll the dice at the end of the season, they've got rid of him. And then what happens? Phil Brown won't stick around if they go down. I'm sure he'll be off into the sunset, and that'll be that. And it just seems like such a waste.
Yeah, and just as you talk about Mark Molesley there, whatever you think of the job he's done at Southend, I think he can be pretty confident going into his next job that, he's got this plan and he never deviated from it. And he's earned plenty of respect, I think, from his stints, albeit, Southend's still in a perilous position, but I feel, and it sounds like you feel as well, Mike, he's done what he could.
Yeah, I think if you're a low budget League Two club, mid-table, lower half of the division in terms of budget, and you just want consistency, and you potentially want an eye at the playoffs next season or something along those lines, I wouldn't put any club off going for Mark Molesley as the next appointment. He's you look at the 24 managers' performance relative to budget and relative to the tools that they were working with at the start of the season. Molesley this season, without a doubt in my eyes, is top half of the division in terms of managerial performance. And I just think that he deserves another shot next season. Give him a summer with a body of work, the chance to get a full pre-season under his belt. I think any struggling sort of, you just look down the road at Colchester, for example, a club like that. Any club in that kind of position next season can look at a much brighter future with a manager like Mark Molesley in charge.